Alright guys, so today I'm going to be showing off a Ridgeway's Pride Hunter Fury hybrid build that I came up with. It's a status DPS combo. So throughout the video I will be explaining the situations, the thought processes behind it, how the talents and that trigger, and the strategy with a build like this that comes with playing solo. And in the description, I will have the pieces that are in the build if you'd like to replicate it. So let's go ahead and get started. The pieces that I'm running that I show you real quick in the video, you're welcome to pause it if you'd like, are an Aug submachine gun, an A3, a Carnage named light machine gun, the Regulus legendary pistol, a 4-piece Hunter Fury Grupo Backpack with the Wicked talent on it, and the Ridgeway's Pride chest piece. I'm running a Shrapnel trap and a Shrapnel Hive. There's no skill tier involved in this, but you don't particularly need it. And I'll go ahead and show you guys a little bit of the playstyle involved in it. Now, as you guys can see in this first encounter, and as you will see in the first few encounters, this build relies on you being aware of your surroundings and relies a lot on choke points. You need to be able to cover your left and right flanks with your Shrapnel trap and your Shrapnel Hive because of the range of the Hunter's Fury debuff, which is 15 meters. And the Ridgeway's Pride bleed proc, which is also 15 meters, it is actually to your benefit for enemies to flank you and get within that range. The second they do, they get a 20% debuff, so your damage goes up by 20% against them due to the Hunter's Fury build. They get the bleed proc, and I'm running Sadist on the SMG, and the Carnage light machine gun has Perfect Sadist. So that's a 20 to 25% damage increase against enemies that are bleeding. And then you have the Wicked talent on the backpack, which is an 18% damage increase against enemies that have a status effect applied. So any enemy that gets close to you, the purpose of this build is to be within that range strategically. So that way you're able to apply that, because that's an immediate 58% damage buff on top of the weapon damage provided by the red cores and the crit damage and crit chance provided by the set and all your rolls as well. One of the definite cons of this build, and you'll see it within these first few encounters as well, is it doesn't perform that well against Warhounds that are constantly moving in a range where they're not receiving the Hunter's Fury debuff. You'll see in this video that it performs way better when they're within range, but you have to be extremely careful because you can see, like in this encounter right here, it's a sniper Warhound, and because the Warhounds can't take bleed procs, the healing range on Ridgeways, you heal for every enemy that is that has a bleed proc applied to them within 10 meters. You can't get within 10 meters of a Warhound and not have anybody bleed proc. You're taking a huge risk because they can't receive a bleed proc, so you're not going to heal at all. You need to be able to clear the area first and tactically keep in mind where the Warhounds are. And you'll see the way that I've approached this area is to always try and keep some space between where the Warhound can hit me and its line of sight and where I need to be tactically to take out the rest of the enemies. On that last kill right there as well, you'll notice as I clear the ads, not only do you get armor regeneration for every enemy that has a bleed proc applied to them due to Ridgeway's Pride, but because of the Hunter Fury build, you actually get armor on kill for every enemy you take out as well. So that's a double benefit. The more you kill and the more you get into a rhythm, the better this build is going to perform.
unauthorized network access. Detected.
Damn, they've already reached the shade node. Get there as fast as you can.
The next area is actually a good example of another bit of versatility with this build. Due to the fact that the Ridgeway's Pride bleed proc and the Hunter's Fury debuff only trigger within 15 meters, the reason that I'm using a Shrapnel trap and a Stinger Hive is to give myself a little bit more range. Because it's not just to cover your flanks. If you can throw those and get some distance on them, you can still achieve the Wicked damage bonus and the Sadist damage bonus by having enemies run into a trap or a hive that's a little bit farther away out of the normal range of the Ridgeway's Pride. The only negative to that is that you're not going to get the armor regen for enemies having bleed procs within 10 meters, but you're still going to be able to DPS, so that way you're not just a short range build, you can be a short to mid range build. I instinctively thought that was going to be a Bombardier drone, that's why I got out of the way. One of the main cons of this build is you cannot take a ton of explosive damage. You absolutely need to keep an eye out for any Grenadier enemies, any Grenade Warhounds. You need to keep an eye out for any Bombardier drone operators, that kind of thing. You can, if you're healing and you're on a roll, you can possibly take one of them. You cannot take two of them. So that's something you need to be attentive to at all times. This area was a good situation of seeing how the Hive can be used at a distance, that I was able to close the gap on that heavy, because without being able to throw the Hive and create more of a mid-range area of effect with the bleed procs, it's highly possible I don't survive that encounter. In this area, I do my best not to have to throw out the Hive or the Shrapnel trap. One of the main benefits of this build is to be able to use them to create distance, but the drawback on that is the cooldowns. The cooldowns on both take a long time. You can actually skip the cooldown on the Shrapnel trap entirely if you blow it up yourself when it has, I believe, 1 to 3 seconds left before it initiates cooldown. But the Hive takes a while to reinitiate the charges, and that's a very big key of this build. So those are things you need to be attentive with as well.
trying to access the Shade database. Let's hope you stop them in time.
The AUG submachine gun is the main weapon I run with this. And what I would recommend if you're going to run this build is I would recommend a submachine gun that has a magazine upgrade, has 4 mod slots, so you can go ahead and slap extra crit chance on it to be able to slap more crit damage on the gear pieces of the build. And my AUG isn't rolled for damage, crit hit chance, and crit hit damage. It's only rolled for submachine gun damage and critical hit chance. What I would ideally want on this build is submachine gun damage, critical hit chance, and actually damage to armor, because you can get the critical hit damage and weapon damage so high with the talents anyway that you don't really need to boost that. My crit damage on this build is actually at 160%, and I don't have a full SHD watch bonus with that. The other cool thing I like about this build is if you get used to running it and you're attentive, that little screech you hear means that something has hit your hive and your hive is triggering. So you can actually keep an ear out for that while you focus on one area, and you know when somebody has penetrated one of your flanks. And you can actually, because you'll see I turn and look over, there's a Warhound there. It looks like the Warhound takes more damage due to the hive hitting it. I don't know if that's accurate because it doesn't take bleed procs. It's something I need to double check. But I thought that was a cool little thing as well to take note of, is as long as you're aware of your surroundings, there's a lot that you can accomplish with this. I started noticing that the Warhounds, at the angle they fire grenades, were almost always going to hit the ceiling unless they were in a very specific range to me. So that allows me to not worry about them so much and kind of let them do their thing and keep an eye on other ads on the map as well. These are little things you can notice as long as you keep an eye on them. You'll notice I just pulled out the Carnage and started hitting ads with it, and one of the other benefits of this build is that the Hunter's Fury proc applies whether you're using a submachine gun or another weapon. The only thing you lose by pulling out the Carnage as a backup weapon is the 15% submachine gun damage bonus that's part of the Hunter Fury set. You still get your armor on kill, you still get your damage to bleeding enemies because it runs Perfect Sadist, you still get your Wicked damage bonus, and you still apply your bleed procs to anybody within 15 meters, and you still get your armor regen. So there's not a lot lost, and in a pinch, like let's say that you need to reload your SMG and you just don't have time, you're getting surrounded, you could pull out the Carnage and it's got a 100 round mag, so you can go ahead and clear things up a little bit. This encounter is actually a perfect little showcase for what this build can do in an area with a large amount of cover and the ability to cover all your choke points and swap weapons in that. So this is probably the best area in the video to have shown what this build is capable of if you're aware of your surroundings and everything else going on. Now, the way I want to finish up the video, maybe you've watched this and you've thought I'd like to do something different with it. There are other talents you could try to apply this with. You could, say, substitute Wicked for Creeping Death if that's your thing, if you want to be able to apply the bleed proc to other enemies around one enemy. There's a lot of different things you could do with this. You could probably turn this into some kind of yellow and red build instead of a pure red build where you have your trap and your hive doing a bit more damage. You could use different weapons on it as long as they're using Sadist. The Hunter's Fury set gives a shotgun damage bonus. I don't prefer shotguns with this, so you could do that as well. You don't have to use the Carnage. You could build this around the Regulus, which is the pistol that I'm using, and use that the whole time. There's a ton of flexibility with this idea, and that's one of the things I really love about it. Now, this is the last encounter area. I actually go down here. I was honestly getting ready to go to work, so I kind of stopped paying attention, got a little too aggressive. But this area is actually a good showcase to showcase what not to do with this build. I came in this room and I covered my choke points, but I didn't keep an eye on the Warhound. I'm not being that attentive to the cover around me and how best to utilize it. I don't exercise patience in my strategy in the room. And these are all things you need to do with this build to get the most out of it. So I'm actually kind of happy that I go down in this area because I've gotten to show you guys the potential, and now I get to show you mistakes that you can make with the build. But overall, I hope you guys have enjoyed the video, and I hope y'all have yourselves a great night.
Medical assistance needed. Agent killed.